Hello, everybody. We've got a show that promises to be mildly interesting for your listening and watching enjoyment. First up is a long overdue conversation about skunky beer. At least, it's long overdue for me. Then, we've got Niki Black from AffiniPay talking about their latest legal industry report. Then Niki sticks around to tell us why everything is bullshit. Right, this is the fucking Matrix. We'll tell you more. But first, grab yourself an ice-cold Mickey's Double Deuce because we're talking about really shitty beer. So as I record this monologue, I just got back from Memorial Day weekend where I was in upstate New York. Why was I in upstate New York, you might ask? Good question. My daughter had a horse show. She won 24 ribbons. It's a lot of ribbons. I'm very allergic to horses, so I mostly stood far away from the festivities. But then on the Monday of Memorial Day weekend, we hit the National Baseball Hall of Fame and National Basketball Hall of Fame in the same day, which I was pretty proud of. So I had a lot of time on the road. I was in hotels watching like actual television with commercials. And that's how I learned about popular culture. Because when I'm at home, I only stream things on Netflix or HBO Max, and I only listen to podcasts. So I see actual commercials when I'm sitting in hotel rooms. And I saw about 1 million commercials for Busch Light Apple, which is apparently a beer. Busch Light is a fucking terrible beer. It's even worse than Busch beer. Head for the mountains of Busch. I think not. And I don't know why you would try to flavor Busch Light with apples. It sounds horrendous. I mean, just make a fucking cider. What is this? 1994? So, in my experience, you don't put apples in Busch Light. A can of Busch Light is for cigarette butts. You know, before all these craft breweries started, beer was dog shit. It was really hard to find good beer. And now you got a craft brewery on like every corner, and there's 1 million different types of beer. When I was in college in the 90s, we didn't have a lot of options for beer. The fanciest we got was Mike's Hard Lemonade came out, alcoholic lemonade. Zima came out. I don't even know what Zima was. It was sort of like 7-Up as alcohol. It was nasty. Kind of like Clearly Canadian, which they still make, but with booze in it. And then Cider Jack, all novelties. Cider Jack was like apple cider, alcoholic apple cider. And we were like, wow, now we got something working here. Oh, it was kind of working too well because I remember when Mike's Hard Lemonade came out and I'm like, this shit is delicious. I could drink this all day. And so when you're drinking lemonade and you're getting drunk off of it, it's pretty easy to drink like 20 Mike's Hard Lemonades. And I remember I had the most horrible stomach ache of my life one night when I was just throttling Mike's Hard Lemonades all night at a party. Never again. I can't touch it to this day. They have limeade and Mike's Hard Lime now, I think. I can't do it. I've never been able to look at it anymore without wanting to vomit. So back in the day, needless to say, I had a lot of experience with beer. I was a poor college kid. I probably would have drunk rubbing alcohol, Kitty Dukakis style if I was in a pinch. I wasn't picky. And then I worked at a liquor store when I was 18, which you could do, and I think maybe you still can do in Massachusetts. So I think it might be illegal now. Now you have to be 21, I think. But I was 18. I was good, though. I never drank any of the singles that were left in the cooler. I don't know what the status of statute of limitations on any of that stuff is. In any event, in honor of the release of Busch Light Apple, which probably answers the question of what a human taint tastes like, I want to reveal my list of greatest all-time skunk beers. Or I guess worst all-time skunk beers. I'm kind of confused. I'm just going to give Busch Light Apple an honorable mention here because it's probably terrible. Before we get into the beer side of the equation, they usually say beer before liquor and never sicker, so I should start with my liquor here. I want to give a shout out, an honorable mention, as it were, to Jenkins Vodka. You remember Mr. Jenkins toiling away on his vodka recipe deep in the heart of Russia, making the traditional recipe that only his grandmother could make? And if you're feeling a little heavy set these days, remember, Jenkins Light has even fewer calories than regular Jenkins. Now, when somebody brought a handle of Jenkins Light to the party, you knew two things. The first thing you knew was that that person probably had a lot of money left over. And the next thing you knew that you're going to have to drink that shit fast enough so that you forget what it tastes like. Okay, let's get to the beer list. I'm going to take a little detour starting out with my number 5 skunk beer. And I'm going to go with a craft beer, a more recent craft beer. So believe it or not, some asshole made a beer called Rocky Mountain Oyster Stout. It's exactly what you think it is. It's a stout with pieces of real bull testicles in it, because apparently more testicles mean more iron, I guess. One Reddit commenter suggested that it might have been a nut brown ale. Touché, sir. And that's a hard pass for your boy. Number 4, the 4th shittiest beer ever. I got to give a shout out to Natty Ice here. The cheapest beer you could get, natural ice. I don't think I've ever seen Natty Ice out of its native form, which is a 12-pack. I don't think I've ever seen a 30-pack. I don't think I've ever seen a case. Always some dude walking around with 2 12-packs of Natty Ice, which went down not so well, as it turns out. Only there's nothing natural about it, as far as I can tell. My best guess is that truly natural ice doesn't taste like Sasquatch's nutsack. If I lived a glacier, I wouldn't find that. Probably. The search for Bigfoot. Okay, my 3rd worst beer. Miller, back in the day, 90s, came out with these companion beers, Ice House and Red Dog. And I actually didn't mind Red Dog. Red Dog wasn't bad. It had a big red dog on the label. And Ice House had a house with ice on it, on the label. So one was blue, that was Ice House. One was red, that was Red Dog. That's how you could tell the difference. But I always hated Ice House. The worst. Ice House was fucking wretched. Like I told you before, if I look at some things now in my old age, it makes me retch a little bit. Seeing a can of Ice House makes me feel that way. It's ice brewed though. So now you know what ass tastes like if it was ice brewed. Number 2, my 2nd worst beer. Sorry, Nikki, I gotta throw some shade at Rochester, New York. Nikki, I'll tell you about Rochester, New York in a second, but they brew Genesee Ale, which is really fucking bad. And they may be brewing it with toilet water for all I know. I remember when I worked at the liquor store, you could get Genesee beer, cans of beer, in like a 36-pack. Now, most dudes are coming into the liquor store picking up a 30 rack, but if you need that extra 6-pack, you've got like some options. Actually, you have one option. You have Genesee, and it's different flavors. So the nastiest of all the Genesee beers, in my opinion, was the cream ale. I mean, if you're going to make like a shitty little beer in a can, just fucking own it, like Pabst Blue Ribbon. Don't like try to put cream in it or some shit. You're not making like novelty sodas. I mean, cream ale in a can in the 90s? Right. Like, just call it Bud Ice and be done with it. All right. Now, what you've all been waiting for. I got a really interesting pull here for my worst beer ever. Another late 90s original, 98, 99. Panther Brewing Company. Remember them? They came out with Three Stooges beer, which meant that if you've got the Three Stooges IP, people are probably just going to buy it because it says Three Stooges on it. And it doesn't have to be good. And it wasn't. But the worst part was that they doubled down on the Three Stooges idea. And then they made something called Curly's Light, the light version of the Three Stooges beer, which tasted like a combination of fish and smoke. There it is. My list of nastiest beers ever. Let's recap. Number 5, probably Rocky Mountain Oyster Stout. Balls out, everybody, I guess. Number 4, Natty Ice. Number 3, Ice House. Maybe don't make shit with ice anymore. Number 2, Genesee Cream Ale. Blarg. And number 1, Curly's Light. Although that got pretty dark. Next up, our guest interview, which always goes down smooth. Today is Niki Black, y'all, so buckle your seatbelts. Well, I've effectively run out of things to say, which is awkward because this is a podcast. So I'm just going to sit quietly with my hands folded for the remainder of the episode. I did a lot of that in Catholic school when I was growing up, let me tell you. No, I'm just fucking around. That sounds awful. Let's interview our guest instead. Our guest today, is a good friend of mine, is Niki Black. She's the principal legal insight strategist at AffiniPay. That sounds insanely impressive. Did I get that right, Niki?
You did, and that's my title as a, I don't know.
Yeah, I was going to say that's
maybe?
new, right? More duties or same type of thing?
I think the idea was to try to encapsulate what I did more effectively than and make it more understandable internally and externally. So it's still what I've always done. Bridge between law and tech internally and externally, really.
Yeah, bridge between law and tech doesn't sound like a super impressive title, though, so I see why you went the way you did. Let's dive into the report a little bit, which you are the author of. We've done presentations before on AI for bar associations, and those have mostly been fun when people put down the pitchforks. But let's talk about use cases, because in this report, it talks about specific use cases that law firms are utilizing for AI. So 54% are using it to draft correspondence. 47% are using it for brainstorming. 46% are using it for general research. 40% are using it to draft documents. And I think you have like 7 or 8 other use cases down here as well. I'm seeing that too in the firms I talk to. So do you want to comment on that a little bit? Like, why are these use cases so valuable? And why have law firms been drawn to these first before other places?
Well, I think what's interesting is when you look at the results from last year as well, there are some similarities and then there's some changes. So last year when we surveyed everybody, the only things you really saw them doing were things that were clearly not going to use confidential information, like really safe use cases for the most part, in terms of what the majority were using it for. So brainstorming and like general research. And now this year you're seeing some more legal specific use cases crop up. I mean, it's still, and drafting correspondence was always popular because that's a little bit easier and it's an easier lift and it's not, it's a shorter output and it is often doesn't have confidential data in it, or you don't need to provide it with confidential data to get that output. So that stayed there up at the top, and so did brainstorming. So people are still playing it safe in terms of, as they should, in putting confidential information into these general use case tools. But I do think that what's happening is these legal tech companies are rolling out legal specific functionalities from more trustworthy sources. They're starting to use it for things that are a little bit more granular and a little bit more and utilize confidential information, like drafting documents, summarizing documents that often have confidential information in them. Legal research, especially as those companies are really doubling down and rolling out pretty sophisticated AI functionality. So I think that what we're seeing is a slight shift in use case, and I think over time it's going to increasingly be more complex requests that utilize that confidential information, and that's going to become the more valuable use case for most lawyers.
And this is kind of part and parcel of the fact that more legal specific products are coming out for AI, right? Because attorneys feel better about dropping information into my case, for example, than into ChatGPT, which makes sense.
Yeah, and we asked about how there are data points in the survey about trusted legal providers and how important that is. And, it's very important. And people would prefer to work with trusted legal providers that they have already vetted, that they know will handle their information properly, which, makes sense.
And hearing from other lawyers who are using the same software, in my experience, like that's why lawyers do things when they hear from other lawyers that I'm doing the same thing, because then they're like, oh, well, if he's getting into trouble, so am I. Here's another interesting one that I pulled out of the survey. So in the you have a financial wellness section of this report, which has a whole host of interesting data points to it. But one that I thought was useful was 56% of law firms using passive time tracking reported measurable time savings each month. Now, I've been beating the drum on passive timekeeping for what feels like forever. And what's crazy to me is that a lot of people still haven't heard about what this even is, and they're still doing manual time tracking. So first of all, can you talk about what passive time tracking is, and then why lawyers are starting to flock to this option for time tracking?
So it's basically a tool that tracks the work that you're doing either in a specific program or on your computer. Depends on the specific tool and what it does. But essentially, we have Smart Time Finder in my case, and it tracks all the work that's done in my case. So at the end of the day, anything that you have not, like if you were on a phone call, or rather if you were working on a memo or reading something, and then you clicked after you completed that work, capture the time, and you captured it and you entered the information in so it could be added to the invoice for that particular client. If you fail to do that for some of the work, in my case, then what it will do is at the end of the day, and this is pretty much the functionality no matter what tool you're talking about.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you go to, you click on a link and it takes you to a page that has a list of all the things that you've done that were not captured so that you can then check off the ones that you want to capture, enter the, confirm the information client, or enter it if it needs to be, and ensure the amount of time is accurate, and then, capture it, and it gets added to the invoice for that client. So it's just a way of, we all forget to track certain work that we've done, and we forget that we've even done it because you get busy and you get interrupted. And so it's just a way to make sure that you capture all the work that you actually do and invoice it to the client and get paid for it. But it's a really valuable tool because, as the data shows, both when we ask customers about it, and also when we take anonymized data out of the software to see how much time is actually captured, it's pretty significant. And if if you multiply it out by the billable hour, it's thousands upon thousands of dollars, depending on the size of the firm and the amount of work performed every year,
all
or even
kinds of
every
lost
month.
time for law firms. I guess the other part of it too is that manual time tracking sucks. Like everybody I talk to is like, I hate doing this. It's awful. And so the stuff that you're talking about is actually built into the system. I don't have to go out and buy another product, right, to do manual or to do passive time tracking in a software like my case.
Right. You don't have to. There are standalone, I believe there's still standalone tools out there specific for legal, or that are can be very easily used for legal, and often are. But when it's built into the software that you're already using, it can be incredibly valuable, especially when it's either your legal billing and invoicing software or your practice management with that built-in functionality. It can really save your firm a ton of money, and pay for the software just with a, 1 week's use can literally pay for your software, even 1 day's use sometimes.
I know, it's crazy. I think more and more attorneys should be looking at that. And also, like, the other part of this that I like is it allows you to capture more data points if you want to utilize financial metrics, which a lot of law firms don't do either, or they should do more of that.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
So maybe the craziest thing I saw in this report was...
Oh no, what?
There was a section on where and how people were working post-pandemic. And the number one method of work, which was at 28%, was full-time in office for all team members. I don't know about you. I think that is fucking nuts. Like, we are 5 years out of a pandemic, and people are still being required to work in an office space, which seems so wasteful to me. Now, I know I'm like, I don't know if your opinion is as strong as mine. That struck me as like insanity. Like, I don't know why you would do that. Like, the cost savings alone of reducing your office space, it doesn't make sense to me. And I don't think people want to work in offices anymore. Your thoughts?
Well, there's a lot of reasons. We talk about this on Bob Ambrogi's show. Joe Patrice was the first one to identify something that I hadn't thought of, but I think now it's kind of common knowledge. But at the time, it was unique, which is a lot of these companies and firms have investments, both actual financial investments in commercial real estate, or they represent
Oh,
people in
sure.
commercial real estate, or else
Yeah.
they're just locked into long-term leases. I mean, that's another issue. And so
Right.
they want to justify the fact that they have this expensive lease. And I think there's a lot of ego involved. People like to have their underlings constantly currying favor to them, and
That's going around.
yeah, I mean, and so I think that there's a lot of that as well. But what was interesting to me about those data, I mean, I agree that that was a surprising data point, but if you'd asked me before the pandemic, I would have thought it was a great data point.
I mean, yeah, pre-pandemic, I would have been like, great, that seems really high.
Yeah. But across practice areas, that's what was, and firm size, that was, it was particularly firm size in this particular data point, I think, is what I looked at. But across firm size, it's super interesting to see how different, larger law firms are actually, which more, it's the mid-sized firms that are the most sticking to this in-office all the time thing compared to solo smalls and really large firms. So it's interesting to see who's doing that and who's being a little more flexible and why. There's a lot of value for solo and small firms to be nimble, and they're not trapped in these long-term leases. And large firms, they're just able to be more flexible because they have so many more employees, I think.
Yeah. The thing that's amazing to me is like we're now like 5 years hence, which, not all of those leases are up, but some of them came up during that time period. And it's kind of wild to me that some people would have like doubled down and been like, you know what? Let's do another 5-year lease. Why not?
Right? Yeah. I
kind of view it as a competitive advantage to be able to tell your lawyers you don't have to work in the firm. I mean, we're all adults here. Like people can get their work done. Well, some of us are.
Well, I mean, judging by, I'm just thinking of during the pandemic when everyone's walking around in their underwear in front of the camera and forgetting that they don't have pants on.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're all adults, but.
Adults don't have to wear pants all the time. Did I miss anything that you thought was particularly interesting in this survey?
I thought a lot of the practice area specific data points, this is the first time we'd really crunched the data that way, actually collected data about practice areas and then crunched the data. And it was just really interesting to see with generative AI in particular, how different practice areas were embracing or not embracing the technology. And we also, there were a few other sections where we talked about that too. So I think in some ways it's unique to the practice of law. Like certain law firms that focus on one practice area don't even remotely run the same as firms that focus on another practice area, especially when they're only handling one practice area, like a PI firm versus a trust and estates firm. Completely different business model, completely different, approach to just about everything. So tech as well. So it's interesting to see those differences across the practice areas.
I feel like at some point everybody's got to be on it, though. Don't you feel that that's got to be the case at some point down the line? Like, I think it's going to be really hard, any practice area, to avoid, like, utilizing AI, at least in some way.
Well, I think that compared to any practice technology that preceded it, adoption's up, it's gone up so much faster, and the utility and the advancement of it, the way that they're constantly rolling out new, sometimes stupider, but new versions of it, or lazier, or way too nice, overly nice was the latest rollout of ChatGPT, and they had to roll it back. But I think that it's going to be a matter of 2 years where you have the vast majority of people and lawyers using this tool. It's unbelievable how rapidly this is advancing and how rapidly people are adapting to it and adopting it.
So we talked about the 2025 legal industry report from AffiniPay, and that's available if people want to download that and get a look at it, right?
Yeah. If you just Google AffiniPay legal industry report, you can get the link.
Easy enough. Or I suppose ask your local AI. Niki, that was fun, as always. You want to hang out a little bit longer? We got another segment for you. I promise I won't make you come to any physical location. We can just continue using our video conferencing technology.
All right. Let's see what happens here.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the Counter Program. It's a podcast within a podcast. This is a conversational space where we can address usually unrelated topics that I want to explore at a greater depth with my guests. Expect no rhyme and very little reason. Niki, welcome back.
Thanks. I'm looking forward to this segment.
So, we've spoken a bunch at conferences, and
we have.
Let's be honest. You're pretty convinced. You're pretty convinced that we live in a simulation, right?
I am.
Okay.
I am.
would you like to share your thoughts on that?
Uh,
Care to explain?
well, sure. I mean, first of all, I was a religion major in college, so that means that, meaning not religious studies, but the study of religion and philosophy and the psychology and
Yeah.
sociology of religion, and so I've always been kind of focused on this idea of who are we? Why are we here? Like, what's happening? And I've always been very interested in science fiction as well. That interest was peaked in law school, and ever since then, I just religiously watch science fiction, and that obviously comes up in science fiction as well. So somewhere along the way, I started to buy into this idea, and then people like Elon Musk and other, people in the tech world, there's talks where they would say, the likelihood that we are the base reality is minimal. It's like a very low percentage, meaning that we're the reality from which all these simulations spark. And we have simulations, right? We have Sims, which is literally a simulated fake reality. And if you follow tech, you'll see like one of the things that I thought was super interesting right before the 2016 election was, I think that's when I read about this, there was a simulation being run or right after Trump was elected, possibly. There was a simulation being run out in Finland or something like that to test how religions impacted society. So they ran the simulation in full without any religion. And all these little villages and villagers all just did their own thing, and they throw a disaster at them, and they'd all bond together, even though they were in separate villages, and try and help each other out. And then they reset the simulation. Resets the part that I was really caught up in. I love that idea. But they reset the simulation.
Let's do that.
Yeah, right. Do the same thing, but make them all the same religion. And they still all bonded together. So then they reset it and made them 2 different or 3 different, and they kept adding more religions. And the more religions they added, the more that they all isolated in their little communities, didn't help anybody else, and became like horrible little people, in this simulation, basically. And so I thought it was fascinating because what if we're all just in a simulation? And then I came across the Mandela effect. I don't know if you're aware of that, where people remember things differently. And then you have like in sci-fi parallel universes and, time, the time goes, it goes into different pathways. And so that I bought some books. There's a book by a MIT professor that's called The Simulation Hypothesis. And then he followed up with a multiverse hypothesis or something like that. And that's even better book. And
That'd
it's
be kind of cool.
Even better, an even better analysis and explanation of quantum physics, like at a quantum physics level, Schrodinger's cat. And, you have to do a deep dive into all this, but it explains all these things at a quantum physics level that they can't quite explain. And so I'm convinced that based upon all of this and reading these books, that more likely than not, we are living in a simulation. And that's why everything's crazy. They've just put this stress test to see how are we going to deal with everything. So it's a stress test on the simulation. Right. And one day, and that's why we remember different things, because some of us are from different timelines of the simulation, and we all got mixed together because of the multiverse and the different game versions of the game that we're in, because we're actually in a multiplayer game simulation. So, but I'm convinced. So that's the Niki's crazy part of the show. But
that's fucked up. That's not crazy. Like a lot of people believe this. I don't know. Like it's totally possible. I don't discount it at all. But what I want to do is not figure out whether we're in a simulation today. If we are in a simulation, this is what the simulation is dictating that I do. So I wanted to test your knowledge of various simulations from pop culture.
All right.
It's a game I'm going to call The Unreal Deal. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to read the IMDb log line from a TV show episode or a movie. And then I want you to tell me which one it is.
Oh, so I feel like I need my husband here for this. He's the one that remembers all the things. But okay, let's see how I do on my own.
If you get time, you can bring him in if you want. You can play this back with him later, and he can tell you what
dial
a
friend, dial a husband.
I'll start out with what I think is like relatively easy one. Here's the IMDb log line. When a beautiful stranger leads computer hacker Neo to a forbidding underworld, he discovers a shocking truth. The life he knows is the elaborate deception of an evil cyber intelligence. What is the movie?
The Matrix. I know that one all on my own.
From 1999. You've seen The Matrix, I'm assuming.
Oh yeah, I've
multiple
seen the
times?
Matrix, The Matrix
Is this
Reloaded.
Oh, really? You've seen them all?
Yeah.
How many are
All I
there?
do is watch Sci-Fi.
4? Is that right?
I don't know. I'm pretty sure I've watched them all. I may have fallen asleep during the last one.
All you do is watch Sci-Fi? Like, you should crush this then. All right, you're 1 for 1.
Yeah.
I believe
right.
in you. I believe in you. Okay.
We'll see.
Second one. This one might be a little bit tougher, but we'll see. Captain Robert Daly presides over his crew with wisdom and courage, but a new recruit will soon discover nothing on this spaceship is what it seems. This is a episode of a TV show. I'll give you a hint. It's a little bit more modern.
Captain, I don't know why I don't know the name of Captain
if you
Robert Daly.
If you haven't seen
it's definitely
this,
not Star Trek.
Not Star Trek, no.
Uh-uh.
It is Black Mirror.
Oh, I definitely watched Black Mirror.
Season 4, episode 1, USS Callister. Have you seen that one?
Yeah, no, I've seen every Black Mirror. I think I was trying to think of a show that was every episode was about the spaceship. Not like Black Mirror, every single episode is a different... It's like it's like Twilight Zone, like a whole different story.
Yeah, it's like an anthology show.
Yeah, anthology, yeah.
You've seen all the Black Mirror episodes, including the new season? Season 7?
The new season also has a Starship one.
Yeah, it's the sequel to this one.
Oh, is it the sequel? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The last episode of the season. I'm going to do I don't want to... Let me tease this. I'm going to do my own little overview of Black Mirror in an upcoming episode. I love that show. All right,
it's alarming though, because
it is
because
it's all
tech.
Most
of the things, it's all tech, and most of the things that they say, oh, this may happen one day, they end up happening like 4 months later, and you're like
like right away. It's
like the Bumblebee robots one. They've been around for a while. These Bumblebee robots.
They have some crazy shit on Black Mirror. So if you're not watching Black Mirror, you absolutely should. Okay, yeah. Here's another one. This is a movie. Here's the IMDb log line. An insurance salesman begins to suspect that his whole life is actually some sort of reality TV show. What movie is that? Insurance salesman.
This isn't What's His Name. No, it's What's His Name. It's the one who Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks. No, not Tom Hanks. It's this is where I need my husband. I'm really bad.
I feel like you're closing in on it.
No, I definitely know who it is, and I just can't remember the name. It's the movie about he's the guy that goes like that. God, the comedian. Why can't I remember his name?
Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey.
Yeah, Jim Carrey. It's Jim Carrey, and it's Jim.
Correct.
Jim Carrey, and it's so sad because he gets on a boat and he goes to the end and he hits the wall and he realizes that all his friends aren't really friends; they're just actors. I can't remember the name of the movie.
You're describing everything about the. I'm going to give this one to you because you described literally the entire plot of the movie without naming.
Yeah, no, I know. I've watched that one multiple times, and that's one of my favorite ones. Poor guy.
The Truman Show.
Truman Show. Yeah, my husband would know it. That's when I turned to him and say the guy who goes da-da-da, and his friends, and he somehow
he's like,
knows exactly.
Jim Carrey.
Yeah, well, you did. You knew the answer, but yeah,
I knew
totally
the answer.
knows.
I was cheating. All right. Next time we'll have to do couples trivia.
Yeah, right.
But for now,
I need a backup.
I think this one might be in your wheelhouse. I'm not sure. So,
all right.
Let me read. This is a TV show episode of TV show. Right. Lieutenant Barkley mistakenly awakes Moriarty in the... Which episode? Do you know? Should I stop at this point?
Well, he's in a whole bunch of them.
Okay, let me continue.
All right.
Lieutenant Barkley, who I have no idea who he is, full disclosure, or she,
you don't?
Mistakenly awakes Moriarty in the Forgotten Holodeck program, who then makes his demands clear and unforgettable. So this is Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 6.
Yeah, Star Trek Next Generation has so many seasons.
All right, so this one's called Ship in a Bottle. Ship in a Bottle is the name of the episode. I'm going to give that one to you because you're a Star Trek super fan. All right, I got a few more. I'm having fun, at least. This one I think is pretty, somewhat obvious, but this is a movie. Here's the IMDb logline. A computer hacker is abducted into a digital world and forced to participate in gladiatorial games where his only chance of escape is with the help of a heroic security program.
Is this one of the old ones that I won't necessarily know?
This is an older. I'll give you a hint. This is like
isn't War
early
Games,
80s.
is it? Is it War
There's
Games?
there's currently a Disney World ride now based on this movie. I'll throw another one at you. It also had a sequel recently as well.
It's not Back to the Future. That has nothing to do with any of that.
No. But around the same time period, a little earlier.
See, I didn't watch Sci-Fi back then. I liked to watch Back to the Future, but I didn't watch all the other ones.
So you were any sci-fi pre 85 is off the board for you. Sounds like. This one's 82.
82, so I was 82.
Let me throw one more thing at you as well. Jeff
It's
Bridges.
not E.T.
No. Not quite.
That's what
Jeff
I think
Bridges,
of from back
does that
then.
ring a bell?
No. Jeff Bridges.
It is Tron.
I don't even
Tron?
recognize the name of it. No.
Really? Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is
Tron, right?
Yeah, this is on the watch list now. He basically designs a computer game and then he gets trapped inside of it and he's riding around on
I
these
would
light
love
up
that. It's kind of
motorcycles.
like Ready Player One or something.
Oh, you would love Tron. Okay, so this is
right.
good. So we got a recommendation
right.
for you.
Yeah.
Tron. All right, let's do another one.
watch
I got a couple more for you.
All right.
This is a TV show, which I think is a TV show you watch, but we'll see. And this one has like a really long log line giving away lots of information. So we'll see how this goes. Here we go. Kara meets a pianist who reminds her of her father. She tries to play a melancholy melody she remembers from her childhood, and a drawing made by Hera helps her. Meanwhile, Boomer is to be tried for treason. There's a lot going on here. Tyrrell takes her side and helps her escape. I don't anticipate you knowing the episode name, but is this a TV show you're familiar with?
I mean, Boomer's in Battlestar Galactica, but I don't recognize the rest of it.
You're on the right path here, because it is Battlestar Galactica. They had a season 4 episode called "Someone to Watch Over Me," which was a simulation episode. I've never seen a single episode of Battlestar Galactica. Do you recommend it?
Oh, I watched the miniseries. I've watched
The entire run.
series itself multiple times. I watched Caprica, which was a series that came out afterwards. It was like pre.
Got a couple more. We'll see which ones stay in the show and which ones we cut. This one's a movie, and then I got a TV show to round it out. Here's the IMDb log line for the movie, which is post 1985. So this should be in your wheelhouse.
Okay.
When a man goes in to have virtual vacation memories of the planet Mars implanted in his mind, an unexpected and harrowing series of events forces him to go to the planet for real. Or does he? What movie is this?
This is a movie?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Total Recall?
Yes.
Total Recall.
I'm going to give that one to you too. You're performing admirably. I'm impressed.
I think I've watched Total Recall. I just don't remember.
Didn't do it for you.
I'm sure I watched it.
Maybe in another simulation you've watched Total Recall and loved it. I don't know.
Probably.
All right, last one. Last IMDb logline. This is from an episode of a TV series. I realize it's cruel to ask you to name the episode title, so let's just go with what is the TV series?
Yeah.
Mike Ferris finds himself alone in the small Oakwood town, and without recollection about his name, where he is, or who he is, Mike wanders through the town trying to find a single living soul. What TV show is this?
I'm sure I've watched it, but I can't.
It's another anthology show,
Another
of which you may be
anthology
aware.
show.
Pretty famous.
Is it Twilight Zone? I mean, I can't.
This is actually, so the very first episode of The Twilight Zone was the simulation episode.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Is that what this is?
It's called Where Is Everybody? So basically the way it happened is they have an astronaut who is training to go to Mars, and they're trying to train him to be isolated. So they send him into an isolation, into a simulated town, which doesn't really exist, and he goes nuts. And that's the end of the episode. Good stuff.
Interesting. I definitely watched a lot of Twilight Zone, but I didn't start from start to finish. I definitely didn't.
I've seen.
I would catch it when it was on TV back in the days when it was on TV.
I don't have a lot going on, so I recently did though. I rewatched like every Twilight Zone episode from start to finish.
Was it good?
It was good. Yeah,
Watching
most of them were
they
like
just too hokey.
No, they were really good, and most of them were really good. Like the general quality is pretty good, so there were not a lot of clunkers, although there were some.
The one I remember the most is that one where there's a guy in the plane trashing the wing, which whenever I'm flying, which I do a lot, like what if there's like a dude on the plane?
There's something on the wing. Yeah, William Shatner at his finest. That's a Star Trek guy. You must love that.
I didn't like the original Star Trek. I liked all the other ones that
You did not like the original Star Trek?
No, because it was like sexist and awful, and that's what draws me to sci-fi is that it isn't usually sexist, and it's usually like very representative and diverse across the board, because half the time it's aliens and and color doesn't matter and everyone lives in harmony, or else the machines are killing us. But like it's one's extreme or the other. But I just feel like women have strong substantive roles, and it's one of the few places I can consistently go and see that.
That was beautiful.
So
next time we'll have the Niki who likes the original Star Trek on in that simulation. You can debate each other. Thanks for coming on today. I had a lot of fun. Personally, this was great.
Yeah, I did too.
All right, we'll see you around.
Hopefully.
I'll see you on the speaking circuit.
Yeah.
Thanks to our guest, Niki Black of AffiniPay. To learn more about AffiniPay and their handsome list of products for lawyers, visit AffiniPay.com. That's AffiniPay.com. AffiniPay.com. Now, because I'll always be a 90s kid of drinking age, slamming Killian's Irish Red like there's no tomorrow, whose true passion is burning CDs for anyone who would listen, I'm now just doing the modern version of that, which is creating Spotify playlists for every podcast episode that I record, where the songs are tangentially related to an episode topic. This week's playlist is about fake stuff, because that's what the simulation directed that I tell you, and is sponsored by Maui Brewing Company's Coconut Hiwa Porter. I'm just kidding. By the way, Maui Brewing Company, they haven't sponsored shit, but I wish they would. Hit me up. Your beer is actually good, and I want to come to Hawaii. Join us next time when I try to whitewash parts of this episode from my mind. All right, I'm pretty feeling that. I'm gonna go have a Busch Light.